Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Hooked on Sports here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasting streaming services. My name is John Flynn, and thank you so very much for listening to the podcast today. Whether you are listen to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or watching the podcast on YouTube. This is the start of the weekly NFL Pro weekly preview show where I will give you some of the key games to watch throughout the course of the NFL weekend. Those episodes are going to drop on Thursdays. And I'll give you like 3 or 4 games that I have my eyes on, and then of course I will offer my NFL picks against the spread for each and every single one of those games. We have 4 games I wanted to discuss before we to get the football minds going for this first week of the NFL season. And I think it's going to be a superb display from some of these games. There are 4 games I'm going to keep your eyes on with this one. So to preface the first one. So, former Baltimore Orioles star outfielder Adam Jones posted a question on X over the weekend, and he said among Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, which one needs a Super Bowl more to where his legacy mattered for winning the Super Bowl. The career is not complete without winning the Super Bowl. And I argue the easy answer is Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow was the first pick in his draft. The first overall pick in the 2020 draft. While Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson weren't even one of the first 2 quarterbacks drafted in their own draft class, because remember they were both drafted in 2018 in the first round, and the Browns drafted Baker Mayfield, the Jets Sam Darnold, and then Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and then Lamar Jackson was drafted there. And even with Lamar Jackson, he wasn't even the first pick for the Ravens that year, because they had another first round pick which they used to draft tight end Hayden Hurst. Those accords, that the first pick of the draft should be the cornerstone of the franchise, and should lead to a Super Bowl. That's what happened with Peyton Manning when he was drafted by Indianapolis. That's what happened with Eli Manning. He was not drafted by the Giants, because he was first drafted by the Chargers, and then Eli didn't want to go to San Diego, and then was traded to the Giants, and then the rest is history. But I've been thinking more and more about Sunday night's clash between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens in Orchard Park in upstate New York on Sunday night, and the near misses that have accumulated for both of these quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, really strike a chord with me, because the common denominator about those two is neither one has breached the wall of Patrick Mahomes in the AFC. Joe Burrow did in the 2021 AFC Championship game, where he led the Bengals back from down 21-3 to win that championship game and head to the Super Bowl. A Super Bowl that they almost won. Despite having an awful offensive line in front of him. So I think you look at the agony and the playoff suffering that these two teams have. And I love what the NFL did for this, is that the first Sunday night of the season they put in a marquee matchup, and it is perhaps the most popular championship Sunday matchup in either conference, based on the pundits and the prognosticators as well. I mean, I had Baltimore and Buffalo playing on Championship Sunday this year. I definitely don't think that this game will deter that, regardless of who loses this game. But I think the accolades for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are through the roof. The last two MVPs finished top two in MVP voting last year, and you can make the case for either one to win the league MVP. So, but I really think though that this game is going to be going to be decided in three different ways. Number one, I believe the Baltimore Ravens. The reason why I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl is because I think the Ravens have the most complete team, 1-53 in the NFL. When you look at the quarterback and the offense, the defense, the coach and the coaching good enough as well. And I think the Ravens reveal themselves to be able to retain the physicality that makes them such an intimidating opponent to face. And when you look at the Ravens, that's what you look at. Now, the same could not be said about the Bills last year because Josh Allen had an otherworldly season. He was the MVP, and that's who I would have voted for MVP. But I think the Bills needed to get some dudes on defense, and I think a revamped defensive line should pose more challenges for Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken, and perhaps you have a different different idea about this as well. So I think on those accords, I think you look at look at how much the Bills would trying to improve in terms of the physicality, and I think the best chance for the Bills to impose their will is to be able to match the physicality that the Baltimore Ravens are going to show throughout the course of the season. So I think that there's a lot to look at on that accord. Now, the second key is the similar key. The last time the Bills played a game, and I previewed that game, it was the AFC Championship game, and I looked at the Bills' third down defense versus the opponent's third down offense. Last year, the Baltimore Ravens had the number 2 third down conversion rate offensively in the NFL. They converted nearly 47% of third downs into first downs, which was the second highest in the NFL, only to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, defensively, the Buffalo Bills, so they gave up first downs 44.6% of the time on third down, which ranked 31st in the NFL, the second worst in the NFL, only better than the Carolina Panthers last year. So the Bills' third down defense is going to have to be much better if they're going to win this game coming up on Sunday night. So how much will the Bills be able to slow down Lamar Jackson and company there? So I'm looking at that. And then I'm going to be looking at who is going to help, which offensive skill players are going to be able to help these two quarterbacks, because Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, neither team has a dominant receiving core. So, but I do think that there are some things that are encouraging, that the Bills should try to beef up at the wide receiver position during the offseason. I think bringing in Joshua Palmer in free agency is an example. Baltimore responded with DeAndre Hopkins. Now, we're going to know is pretty early how much gas is left in the tank for DeAndre Hopkins. But it would be hard pressed for me to say that they're going to have to rely on the ground game as well. So so then you look at the help there, and also another point as well with the third down situations. The Bills and the Ravens gave up the Bills only gave up 5 sacks on third down last year. The Ravens just 7. Those were the two fewer sack totals allowed on third down in the NFL. So, especially if the Bills are gonna be able to stop, they're gonna have to be really good in coverage, whether it's man coverage or trying to contain to stop Zay Flowers, or in coverage when trying to guard someone like Mark Andrews in the middle of the field, because I think that's going to be a matchup that determines how this game is going to go. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Now the second game, with number 2 on my list of games that I'm going to keep my tabs on, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Now, all 4 teams in the NFC North are going to be featured in this segment before we get into the picks, because I didn't know what to think of the NFC North this season. When I made the predictions, and you can make an argument about any of the 4 teams winning the division and being a threat in the conference. And the first big test of the first big moment of the plot thickening is going to be the Lions and the Packers meeting up at Lambeau Field on Sunday. It is expected to be the debut of Micah Parsons, the dual defenseman that the Packers acquired in a trade with Dallas earlier last week. And it's really rejuvenated the team. It's made everyone instantly revise their predictions and put the Packers in the playoffs. I did put the Packers in the playoffs after that, because if you look at the 2 biggest areas of weakness for the Packers last year, I think that they addressed them in a big way. One in the draft and one in trade. So I think the Green Bay Packers are in a good spot when you have Matt LaFleur, when you have Josh Jacobs running the ball. But and I think that the important thing for the Packers, and we'll see if we'll get answers to this question throughout the course of the season. Was it a true number 1 wide receiver, the thing that Jordan Love was missing? Because I was part of the jury that was still out on Jordan Love, because if you looked at how that season ended last year, both defensively and with Jordan Love not playing a good game at all, and if he played a better game, I thought the Packers would have had a good shot of knocking off the eventual Super Bowl champion Eagles in the playoffs. So I think there's a lot of pressure now on Jordan Love to deliver upon the promise and to justify the ridiculous extension that they handed out. And this is the first year of the contract extension, I believe, kicking in. So definitely some pressure there for the Packers. Now for the Lions, so that a lot of people were kind of sour on the Lions' chances this year after seeing their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson go to the to the Chicago Bears, and their defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn be going to the Jets as their head coach. And now you look at the Lions this season, and you have two different two new coordinators. Um, yeah, two new coordinators with I believe John Morton is the offensive coordinator for the right now for the Lions, while Kelvin Shepherd comes in uh to take over the defense for for the Lions. So the question is how much or will the amount of talent that they've accumulated but by hitting on draft picks over the past half decade, how much is that going to fit into what the Lions want to accomplish and be the team that they want to be. So that's gonna be a monster game there between the Lions and the Packers. And now let's promise we'll stay in the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears meeting up on Monday Night Football at Soldier Field on Monday. And I think this game is really going to be a battle between two teams that have similarly constructed rosters, because the Vikings have an elite defensive mind and Brian Flores. They have a solid offensive line. They have J.J. McCarthy making his NFL regular season debut. And it's gonna be a tough matchup though for McCarthy against the Bears defense. So that was pretty solid last year, and before everything fell apart. I mean, it was after Eberflus was fired. That's when the defense started to tank in terms of the like there. But Dennis Allen comes in and takes over the defense. I think Dennis Allen was meant to be a defensive coordinator and a defensive mind the whole way around. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be monitored there. And then you look at you look at offensively for the Chicago Bears. I think this team is going to go as their offense goes, and I think we're going to have to figure out how much the Caleb Williams will be able to progress in Ben Johnson's offense, and there have been some ups and downs with Caleb Williams this summer in training camp. Now we're going to see how it unfolds in a big way coming up on Monday night. So that's going to be something to monitor right there. And then there is one 1 o'clock matchup that I think that deserves a lot of love and respect, because I do think it's kind of a big deal. So for the winner of this game in week 1, and how it can set the tone for the rest of the season. So the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are I think are the most underrated matchup of the entire weekend. It's because if you look at the last time these two teams played in Atlanta, it was a riveting game. The game went into overtime, 36-30. Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards. Darnell Mooney had a crazy game for the Atlanta Falcons in this one. So I think you look at these two teams, and I would tell you that these are the two best teams in the division. I think Carolina could have something to say about that, because the Panthers are one of the teams that I think are going to be better than people anticipate. But this is the Falcons team that really went all in on addressing their biggest weakness this offseason, and that was the defensive line. They said that they signed Leonard Floyd in free agency, and then they drafted Jalen Walker with the 15th pick in the draft, and then they coughed up their first round pick next year to move back into the first round and pick 26 and draft James Pierce Jr. I believe out of Tennessee. I think that's where he went, but. Also just to think that around this time last year, so the mock draft artists were already trying to peg James Pierce to be one of the top picks in the draft. So could the Falcons be getting a superior edge rusher? So with him now, I disagree with the plan because I don't think it's good enough for the Falcons to win the South. So, but given that I feel like that the general manager and the head coach are going into the season on the hot seat, I think this was the way the Atlanta Falcons had to do it. With all things being equal there, so. And it's going to be a tough task for this Falcons defense against what looks like it's going to be an elite offensive team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So so the advantage that I think the Falcons might have is a Bucs offensive line that does not have their stud right tackle Tristan Wirfs for this game. And the Falcons pass rush might be the most important unit of the whole game. So because last year, if you look at the play finder sheet on stathead.com, so the Atlanta Falcons on third defensively on third down had the fewest sacks of any team in the NFL in third down situations. They only had 9 sacks on third down, and opponents converted on 43.9% of third downs, which was fourth worst in the NFL, only behind the Patriots, the Bills, and the Carolina Panthers. So the Falcons defensively are going to have to take a huge step up in this game if they want to be able to play and perform at a high level this year. So that's where we at when we look at the Falcons defensively against Baker Mayfield and utilizing Bucky Irving and Emeka Egbuka and Mike Evans. I think it's gonna be a superb game in Atlanta coming up on Sunday between those two squads. And now I want to look at Atlanta offensively against Tampa defensively. Now, I don't have Tampa on that top tier of Super Bowl contenders because I'm not sure about that defense. So it's really imperative for the Atlanta Falcons to be able to try and be aggressive early against this team. And I think watching Michael Penix Jr. down the stretch of the season last year, when it looked like the Falcons all mailed it in, so but now all of a sudden they're starting to win games and the offense looks energized and it feels too little, too late. I kind of felt the same way 5 years ago with Jalen Hurts when he took over for the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles won 3 of the. I think the Eagles won a couple of games in a row after that, and then they were competitive there, and it was the momentum for the Eagles going into next season, a season where nobody believed that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to make the playoffs, and they did. They got in as the 7th and final seed in 2021, and then 2 of the following 3 years they went to the Super Bowl and won one of those Super Bowls. So what type of season are we going to expect from Michael Penix Jr.? So he obviously looked very comfortable throwing the deep ball. His poise in the pocket was superb down the stretch of the season last year. And this is another favorable matchup for Michael Penix Jr. with So with the offense against their defense, and he's got 3 skilled position players that were drafted top 10 in the draft. I mean, that they've been saying they're going to try and get after it with get after it with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I think Bijan Robinson is going to be one of the best. I think he was the first running back I would have taken in your fantasy football drafts. It doesn't matter what format you were using. That's how I thought it was going to go all along. So that matchup between the Falcons and the Bucs. So that could be one that we talk about later in the season. So when we look at what happens when the wheels stop spinning in the NFC South and with these two teams and with that week one result in mind. So. I talked about the big games I had on the docket this week, and I think for this accord now, I think it's now time for us to start picking all the games for week one in the NFL against the spread. And I'm very much excited for these games, throughout this week, and I also went back and looked at my results from previous years. So last year, what was was my best year in 4 years picking the winners and losers. I went 188 and 97. Last year, picking the winners and losers against the spread. I was 14 games worse last year than I was the year before. I went 135, 144, and 6 on the season against the spread last year. So I definitely definitely want to improve and try and get to 150 wins against the spread. That would be a podcast high for a season, and I would also love to get to 200 wins against the spread. Wouldn't that be such an amusing idea? So. We began Thursday night football. It will start tonight. We got the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. So they'll be raising the banner in South Philly. The Eagles are favored by 8.5 points in this game against the Cowboys, and so boy, I can't stress enough how much I love the Eagles to win this game. I think the Eagles are going to win and cover. I think this is going to be a game where the Eagles are going to be able to utilize their elite running attack to get them comfortable, and then Dallas is going to try and make a bid late. But I believe the Eagles are going to hang on here and win 27-17 against the Dallas Cowboys, which means I have the Eagles winning and covering. Now, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, you see that these are the favorite lines. Where the team is favored. This is not already my pick against the spread. Those images are going to be uploaded on my social on the podcast socials a little bit later this morning. So the next game on the docket is the NFL in Brazil game with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs are favored by 3 points in this game, and I think this is a game where of course the Chargers are missing Rashawn Slater due to injury, and it's a game where the Chiefs are missing Rashee Rice for the first game of his 6-game suspension. So neither team is 100% in this game, but But I do like the Kansas City Chiefs to win this game. I think this is a game where following the Super Bowl defeat, I think that the Mahomes and the Chiefs want to go out and start setting the tone early for the season. I think this is a big game for Travis Kelce. I think this is going to be a good game for Xavier Worthy as well. And I think for the Chargers, that I think they're going to be too dependent really on running the football in this one, and I think a battered offensive line against Spagnuolo's defense is not a matchup that you would want in your favor offensively. So give me the Chiefs to win this game by a score of 24-17 over the Chargers in Brazil. Now to the aforementioned NFC South clash between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. The Bucs are favored by 1.5 points here. And look, I think this is going to be a case where the Falcons get Tampa at the right time. I think the Wirtz injury kind of scares me a little bit, not a whole lot there. But I think it's going to be a game where Michael Penix continues to impress and picks up where we left off last year. I think this is a big game for London. I think it's going to be a big game for Bijan Robinson running the football here and being able to be utilized in the passing attack as well. So I like Atlanta in this game. I know it's an unpopular pick, but I like the Falcons to start the season 1-0 and beat the Bucs by a score of 27-24 on Sunday. The next game is not a game I would choose from my survivor pools if you are in one. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the road, favored by 5.5 points against the Cleveland Browns. And I said on multiple occasions last month that there is no guarantee really that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win this game against the Cleveland Browns because I think the Browns it's a division game. Joe Flacco starting for the Cleveland Browns, so you're thinking Flacco might try the deep ball against a questionable secondary, but it's Burrow and Chase and the Bengals. I'm gonna pick the Bengals to win. I'm gonna pick them to cover. I don't feel great about it, but the Bengals need to come out starting strong from the gate, and I have them starting the season 1-0 with a 31-24 victory over the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. So the Indianapolis Colts are favored at home by 1.5 against the Miami Dolphins, and boy, this is not my cup of tea in terms of a matchup, but I can't stress enough how much I love the Indianapolis Colts to win this game. I think Daniel Jones, is going to torch that Dolphins secondary. I think it's kind of crazy for me to say at this point, but I can't trust Miami at all. I don't believe in the culture or the coach. So I mean, Chris Greer had a brutal year at the office in terms of the offseason. I mean, Zach Wilson is the backup quarterback to Tua. That kind of scares the hell out of me if I'm Miami. So I think a lot of the Dolphins season is going to be dependent on the health of their key skill position players. So give me the Indianapolis Colts to win 26-19 over the Miami Dolphins. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they are at home. They are 3.5 point favorites at home against the Carolina Panthers in what's going to be the NFL debuts of Travis Hunter and Tedoror McMillan in this one. And look, I still I'm trying to understand what the Jaguars' plan was this offseason. The Jaguars needed dudes, and they needed talent, And I don't know if one guy, if Travis Hunter. Now, Travis Hunter, I think is such a talented player, so that he can play both as a receiver and a corner. But I think if you actually, and I think they have matchups in this game. But if you watch the Panthers down the stretch, I thought Bryce Young played pretty inspiring football, and Dave Canales made a huge point during last season to develop him to be a more rhythmic quarterback, and that's what Bryce Young was. So I think and this has the recipe of upset special written all over it. Give me the Carolina Panthers to win 27-24 in Jacksonville against the Jaguars. And next game, the New England Patriots are 3-point home favorites against the Las Vegas Raiders. And this was what this to me in terms of picking the winner and loser was the toughest game of the week to pick. So because I think both of these teams are going to be in the conversation in terms of the playoffs throughout the course of the season. I think the Raiders have vastly improved. The Patriots have vastly improved. I have the Patriots in the playoffs when you based off all on my preseason predictions from yesterday. But I'm gonna take the team with the better head coach and the more explosive playmaker. I think Ashton Genty is gonna have a solid debut. I think he runs he is close to 100 yards and a touchdown on the ground in this one. So I think the Raiders are gonna go into New England and knock off the Patriots. I have them winning this game by a score of 20-16. The Arizona Cardinals are on the road, favored by 6.5 points, taking on the New Orleans Saints. Now, I love the Cardinals making the playoffs at the start of the season. I think that this is a Cardinals team that I think is finally ready to take a big step forward in a positive direction. And I think this is the perfect matchup for them to set the tone for their season. That the Saints are starting Spencer Rattler, and I would argue the Saints have one of the worst, if not the worst, quarterback situation in the NFL. So that they had the opportunity to draft Jackson Dart and they didn't, and that should annoy every Saints fan out there. So I think the Cardinals are going to dominate in this one. This game feels 31-21, 31-17, but no over it. So give me the Cardinals. I'm gonna lock them in for a final score of 31-17 over the New Orleans Saints coming up on Sunday in the Big Easy. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-point favorites in the Meadowlands, taking on the Jets, and the Jets received some bad news today. Bad news yesterday in practice, as their standout guard Oliver Tucker suffered a season-ending triceps injury yesterday, and his season unfortunately is over before regular season action started. So which makes the task of Justin Fields that much tougher. So when you look at it going up against an elite Pittsburgh defense. So I think this is going to be a defensive game. I think it's going to take a little bit for Aaron Rodgers to get accustomed to the Arthur Smith's offense. So I feel this game has 16-9 written all over it. I'm picking the Steelers to win and cover. The Washington Commanders, they are favored by 6 points at home, taking on the New York Football Giants. And I think these are teams that are going to go in different directions than they did last year. And if you really watch the two games between the Giants and the Commanders, it was just one silly difference in both of those games. If the Giants had a kicker in the first matchup, they would have won that one. And then if they didn't miss tackles on 3rd and 18 in the end of the first half of the second game, then the Giants could have easily won the second game as well. It's because I just don't believe in Washington's roster as much as last year. Give them credit for making sure Terry McLaurin does not become a distraction. Terry McLaurin is a member of the Washington Commanders in 2025 and beyond. But I feel like this is going to be an upset. I think the Giants with the revamped defensive line, bringing in Abdul Carter, healthy Dex, healthy Thibodeau. I think Russell Wilson being better than any quarterback the Giants had last year, I think is such a massive upgrade for them. I can't wait to see what the connection is going to be with Russ and Malik Neighbors. So I'm going to go with an upset special here. I'm going to pick the Giants to win 24-21 over the Commanders in DC in an upset. Now on to the 4:00 games. The Denver Broncos are favored by 8.5 points against the Tennessee Titans. And look, this is the best bet of the week. I love the Broncos to win, cover, smash Tennessee. And it's such an unfair matchup for Cam Ward in his Titans debut. That out of all the places he has to go, he could go and start his NFL career, he has to play against one of the best, if not the best, defense in football this upcoming season. I just don't know how the Titans get to 10 points in this one. Give me the Broncos to win 21-6 over the Titans. The San Francisco 49ers are 2.5-point favorites in Seattle, taking on the Seahawks. And this too was kind of a tricky back and forth affair here. Picking between these two. But I think the Seahawks come in with a vastly underrated defense. And I think I think they have a better defense in this game compared to what San Francisco has. San Francisco lost a lot of key pieces to free agency over the last couple of years as part of the defense that helped lead the 49ers to the Super Bowl. I mean, they still have Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, two of the best at their positions on the defense, but I'm just more concerned about the depth of the defense. I'm concerned with safety. I'm concerned with the interior defensive line. So, and I think those things are pretty clear. But I do like Seattle in this game. I think Sam Darnold is gonna have a nice start to a Seahawks career. I think it's gonna be a back and forth game between the two division rivals. But give me the Seahawks to win this game 25-23 over the 49ers. The Green Bay Packers are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Lions. This is a game I am very much anticipating. 4:25 Eastern game on CBS, and Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson are the broadcast team for that game. I'm going to go with the Packers here. I think Micah Parsons is going to make some impacts in this game. But I think this is gonna be a game where I think Josh Jacobs is gonna be front and center here. I think he's gonna run for 100 yards on Sunday. I think this is a game where Matthew Golden catches a touchdown in his NFL debut, and I think the Packers do have enough creativity offensively, and the coaching advantage. Which will be useful against inexperienced coordinators that the Lions have. So give me the Packers to win the game 27-23 over the Lions at home. Rams Texans. I have both of these teams winning their respective divisions. The Rams are favored by 3 points at home. And look, the Rams were the team I picked to go. One of the teams I picked to go to the NFC Championship game at the start when I unveiled my picks yesterday. I think this Rams team is loaded. I just think that this game is going to be decided between the Rams defensive line, which is superb, against the Texans offensive line, sans Laramie Tunsil, which I don't think is good. So I think Burst is going to have a sack or two. I think Braden Fisk is going to have a sack in this game. I think Stafford's back. Looks like it's going to be manageable for this game. Give me the Rams to win and cover. They win over the Texans by a score of 24-16. Sunday Night Football. This is, of course, the marquee. It's, in my mind, the game of the week, the marquee matchup. NBC's got it. It's the start of the last season of the current stadium in Buffalo. The Bills are at home taking on the Ravens. The Ravens in this game are 1.5-point favorites in this one. So I was actually curious on who the betting favorite was going to be in this game. But I just think Baltimore has the it factor this year. I think Baltimore is a more cohesive unit defensively, and I think you need to remember that it took a while for the Ravens to get acclimated to Zach Orr's defense, specifically when it came to the pass defense. But then they figured out some things. And at that point, they were finally able to take off here. So in this game, give me the Ravens to go into Buffalo and redeem themselves after the way that playoff game ended last year, with Mark Andrews dropping a potential game time 2-point conversion at the end there. So give me the Ravens to win this game by a score of 27-24 over the Bills. And the last game, Monday Night Football on ABC, ESPN. The Minnesota Vikings are on the road in Chicago, taking on the Bears, with the Vikings favored by 1.5 points. And I think this is going to be a game. I'm going to pick the Minnesota Vikings to win. I think the Vikings are going to win. I think they're going to cover. And I think that they're going to be more prepared. Kevin O'Connell is a superb head coach. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor here, coaching and defense. And I think both of those favor the Minnesota Vikings. I think J.J. McCarthy is going to play a turnover-free game. And I think it's going to be a game where I have the Vikings winning by a score of 19-16 over the Chicago Bears. So I can't wait for football to start. Football starts tonight. Got the Cowboys and the Eagles starting the season tonight in Philadelphia. I cannot wait for this. So this is going to be a tremendous season. My first game picks of the season are locked in, and I can't wait for you to follow along with me on the journey of the NFL season in 2025. And remember now, my podcast is now available on my YouTube channel. I mean, I don't know how. I use StreamYard for my other podcast, Fantasy Football Fever. Yeah, and I did that making a promise to myself that I would translate the podcast to video style as well, in addition to what you're hearing if you're listening to this on your favorite podcasting streaming service. So I'm definitely fired up for the season, and I can't wait to discuss that and a lot more next week on the podcast. So until then, this is John Flynn saying so long, everybody, and I will be back here on the podcast next week. So long, everybody, and take care, and happy football, everybody.